And what is a church service without flying, trampoline, monkey people? What is it? What is it? So I told you one of the questions we'll deal with were Adam and Eve, the first two monkeys to fall out of a tree, or did God have a different plan? I'll be talking about that in the weeks to come, So make sure you're back every week for this 4-week series called The Secret of Life. If you're a guest, my name is David. I'm one of the pastors at Church by the Glades, and we're having so much fun this weekend. All kinds of stuff happening this week, by the way. Great job, you guys showing up on Thursday. We had about 100 guys at the men's Bible study, about 400 women at the women's Bible study. Thank you for doing that, connecting. Again, thinking about connecting. Best next steps happens right after the service. It'll be less than 30 minutes long. It kind of helps you know what your next move is at Church by the Glades. So if you're not connected right now, whether you've been here for, this is your first time or you've been here for 10 years, but really not got connected, we'll help you figure out the next step in finding Jesus and developing a spiritual family. Big church becoming a small church is a great thing. When you develop your community, your friends, your relationships, and then rally. Young adult service, 18 to 30. Put your hands together. Come on, if you're not 18 to 30. We have a great young demographic at CBG. They have lots of energy, passion. So once a month, their own service. Some cool giveaways, man. Off-Whites. I'll fake my ID for that, right? Off-Whites, Bang energy drink bar. Make sure you're here or invite someone for that age. All kinds of good stuff. But today, I'm so excited. Because anytime I bring in a guest speaker, I bring in people, they can shuck the corn. It doesn't translate, does it? That's preacher terms. They can throw down, man. They are good. They're awesome communicators. Our speaker today is one of those gifted guys and best guys I know. He's a very dear friend. He serves on our board at Church by the Glades. He pastors a mammoth church, one of the largest churches in the history of North America. They have campuses in multiple states. They're based in Las Vegas. Now, I tease him, there's no church with more beautiful, broken, crazy people than Church by the Glades till I go to his church. His church it's in Vegas. It reaches the people of Vegas. It's a fun church. In fact, last time I preached, true story, a guy dressed up like Captain Jack, full-on pirate. I don't mean like a guy with just a beard and a long coat. I mean a guy with everything short of the parrot was sitting in the second row for 2 services. When you preach to Captain Jack, that's an awesome church service. Anyways, he's a prolific author, speaks all over the world. He's a dear friend. He is a great communicator. He's come all the way from Las Vegas. So Church by the Glades, would you please welcome to the stage the one and only Pastor Judd Wilhite. Come on, Judd. Make your way through the jungle. Judd Wilhite in the house.
Thank you guys. Please be seated. Love being at Church by the Glades. You guys feel like family out in South Florida, and I'm always so honored to be here. I love your Pastor David, his wife Lisa. One of the things I want you to know about Pastor David's who I call when I want to quit. When I'm tired, when I'm worn out, when I've had one too many crazy Vegas people come and do a crazy Vegas thing in our church, I call Pastor David. You know why? Because he loves you, and he loves ministry, and he loves God so much that he encourages me, and by the time I hang up, I'm like, I'm going to keep doing this. I can do this. I'm called to this. I got this. It's going to be all right. God's going to handle it. It's okay. So thank you for that, Pastor David and Lisa. We're grateful for you guys and for this amazing faith community and church. My wife, Lori, her great-grandfather was known in her family as Papa. Any of you have a Papa in your family? I know there's all these different names for grandparents and not only like 6 of you. Okay, so she had Papa in her family, right? It was great-granddad, and Papa was convinced every day for the last 20 years of his life that he was gonna die that day. And so the grandkids would come and visit, and they would all gather around and be like, nice to see you, grandkids. Now, I'm gonna die tonight, and I won't be around the next time you come, and so we need to say our goodbyes. No lie. Every night he would climb into bed with his sweet wife. By all accounts, she was very sweet and kind. Climb into bed with her sweet wife and look over at her and say, honey, we need to go ahead and say our goodbyes because I'll probably die and won't wake up in the morning. Which I'm thinking at first you're really worried and concerned about that, right? As a wife, like, oh my gosh. But after the 1000th time, you're like, do it, bro, please. I double dog dare you, man. So I thought all this stuff was exaggerated about Papa. Like, come on, really? Like, it's not that bad. And when I first met him, I remember I walked up, I shook his hand, I introduced myself. He said it, first words out of his mouth, I almost died today. He said, this car ran through this red light, almost hit me, almost died today. And then we talked for a few minutes. At the end of the conversation, sure enough, he goes, well, I won't be here for you to come visit again, so this will need to be goodbye. We need to say our goodbyes. And I'm like, all right, Papa, would you believe that Papa lived to be 88 years old? But here's what's tragic. He died 20 years before. He lived with fear and worry. Every day he thought it would be his last day, and it didn't motivate him to love and be kind. The stories about Papa were the exact opposite. It motivated him to fear, and he let worry steal the joy that he could have in the moment. And isn't that a temptation all of us face in our lives, to allow our worry about tomorrow and our fear about tomorrow to steal the joy that we can have in the present? I mean, we worry about a lot of stuff, right? We worry about family, we worry about our friends, we worry about our health, we worry about money, about our car, about our, where we're going, our career. We worry about the Dolphins. Man, are we past worrying about, we're worrying about the Dolphins next year. I think that's where we're already at, right? Like, we got a lot of worry. A lot of stuff we carry around. But here's the thing about worry. Worry doesn't work, right? We all know that. It doesn't work. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't affect anything. In fact, worry never fixes tomorrow, but it always ruins today. So you want to go down that road, you're going to ruin today doing it. Now, last week, Pastor David gave a brilliant message outlining the first 3 chapters of Genesis. I watched that message online. It was money, Pastor. Great job. It was so good. He talked about the first reality, the first response, the first intent. He talked about the first words. I'd never really seen this in the Bible. The first words that God spoke to man. Genesis 2:16, you are free. That's powerful, right? God as the emancipator who seeks to set his people free is a powerful message. And I want to go back to those first verses in the Bible to kick us off here. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. And I want us to read them kind of from the mindset of the ancient Near Eastern person. It's easy to sort of want to read the Bible from our modern context, right? People try to look at it from a scientific context or whatever. But it's powerful when you think about how the first hearers of these words would have received it and responded to it. And so let's just dive into it. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. When we get to the highlighted words, have you read those out loud here with me. But here's what it says. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was what? Formless. Now, let me pause right there. The earth was formless, it says, and empty. That word formless could be translated wilderness or desert. Now, who's the first hearers of the book of Genesis? Well, according to tradition, the first hearers or readers of the book of Genesis would have been the Israelites while they were wandering in the what? Wilderness. And so the wilderness represented what was uninhabited and what was wild and what was chaotic, what was kind of out of control. And here's the Israelites. They're in that situation now in their life. And the earth, it says at the beginning, was formless and empty. And what? Darkness covered the deep water. You know what they feared in the ancient Near East? They feared the darkness. They feared sea. All of those things represented chaos to them, right? Darkness covered the surface of the deep water. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the what? Waters. So there it is. These are all pictures of chaos. And these are the Israelites living in a situation in their life that feels like it's filled with worry and fear and it's spinning out of control. And then look at this, verse 3. Then God said, let there be light, and there was light. So from the very opening verses, those original hearers would have received this, realizing that God was speaking order into chaos. God was speaking hope into hopelessness, right? God was speaking light into darkness. And friends, I'm here to tell you today that God can still do that in our hearts and in our lives today. He can speak into that chaos. He can speak into that darkness. He can speak into that fear, speak into that worry, and help us rest in the fact that He is the light. I want to talk to you today about how He can do that, particularly as it relates to the fear and the chaos caused by worry. How many of you are worriers? Go ahead, it's all right. You're in church, you can be honest. Right? Look at all that. You are with me. Man, I am a professional worrier. If there's a PhD in worry, I earned that sucker. Right? Like I can imagine the worst case scenario and spin it over in my mind again and again. I lay in bed in the middle of the night, wake up and watch that ceiling fan go around, and here, my thoughts start going, and it's cranking, right? I'm right there in the middle of worry. I get it, I feel it. But I want to share with you some things that I've learned that can help replace worry and help God really speak into our hearts today. Because it's not helpful to tell people, hey, you just need to stop worrying. Well, tell me something I don't know. It's like telling somebody who's angry, hey, you need to calm down. Never in the history of calming down has somebody calmed down because somebody told them to calm down, right? You need to calm down. You're like, oh, it's on now. It's went to a whole new level. You tell me to calm down. I'm calm. What we say to people don't worry. I found, man, when you replace worry with something else, it can really be powerful. So in the book of 2 Kings chapter 6, there's this amazing story. Elisha is a prophet of God. He's been telling the Israelite army when this warlord army that was trying to attack them was about to attack, and every time that this warlord army led by the king of Aram tried to attack the Israelites, they would move and they would be out of place. And so, they kept trying to find them and they couldn't find them. Every chessboard move they played, the Israelites were always ahead of them. And finally, he's like, what is going on? And one of his people tells him, the king of Aram tells him hey, the Israelites got this guy named Elisha, and this is what he said. He even knows your private thoughts in your chamber. So the king's like, whoa, we got to get this Elisha guy then. So they find out where he's staying. He sends his whole army, and they circle Elisha and his assistant, who are asleep. And they wake up, and here's what we see. 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 15. It says, when the servant of the man of God, this is Elisha's assistant, got up early the next morning and went outside, there were troops, horses, and chariots where? Everywhere. You see that? They were everywhere. He just woke up and walked outside. He hadn't even had breakfast. He may have been going to the bathroom. I don't know. And here's a whole army surrounding them. He says, oh, sir, what will we do now? The young man cried to Elisha. I don't know where you're at today in your life, but I think we all have mornings like that. You just wake up and go about your day. You're not asking for a mess. You don't want a mess. You got enough drama in your life. You don't want any more drama, but drama finds its way to your doorstep, right? All of a sudden, it feels like there's a whole force that's arrayed against you. No matter how hard you try, you can't move ahead in your career. You're convinced somebody's blocking your way, right? No matter how hard you try, you can't move your marriage forward. It feels like there's a whole army arrayed against you. No matter what you do in your financial life, it feels like you can't take any ground. And it's easy to get frustrated and start to let worry and fear grow in our hearts because we start thinking things like this. I'll always be alone. I'll never have somebody love me. I'll never be successful. I'll never have enough. I'll always be broke. I'll always be stressed. This is just life. Dolphin's always going to lose. Too soon? Sorry. But we start saying these things to ourselves, and worry and fear start taking over, and what do? I love what Elisha's servant does in this moment. I don't even think he's aware of it, but he moves the worry into a sphere of action when he asks this question, what do we do now? And you can lay there and worry all day long about the army that's in front of you, or you can start thinking about what you can actually do about that situation. What are we going to do now, right? What do we do now? So the first thing we can replace worry with in our lives is to simply act on your concern. Act on your concern. One guy acted on his concern. Had a coworker. He kept stealing his lunch. He wasn't sure who it was, so he put a little picture up on social media. He was making his own lunch. He says, making fish tacos for the guy who keeps stealing my lunch, but I want you to look up at the top corner there. That's Friskies, people. That's some cat food. That's what you call acting on your concern. You got to think that's the last time that guy got his lunch stolen, unless the guy that stole it was like, hey man, tastes just like Taco Bell. This is awesome. In my own life, I've found that it's helpful if I can just stop for a minute when I'm staring at that ceiling fan and step back for a minute from my worry and ask myself this question: what is the concern that is underlying this worry? Like, what is the concern that's driving this worry? And is there anything I can do to act on that actual concern? Sometimes there's not, sometimes there is. We'll put another slide up here. This is two circles, an orange circle and a blue circle. The orange circle is our circle of concern. We all have these, concerned about our health and our friends and our family. And concern is healthy. I don't want you to hear me wrong. Listen, concern is a gift. I often say about emotions, there are no bad emotions, but every emotion can go bad. Worry is just concern gone bad. Right? You concern about something because you love it and you care. That's all concern is. It's care about something. But worry starts to move it into a realm of actually wanting to control a situation that you can no longer control, right? Worry is assuming responsibility for something you were never intended to be responsible for in your life. Worry is a down payment on a problem you may never own. Who wants to put money down on something you may never own, right? But that's what we do when we worry. So we've got concern. Concern is good, and our circle of concern. And then the blue circle is the circle of control. And I think where we want to try to live is where the circle of concern overlaps the circle of control. There are things I'm concerned about, and I can actually do something about them. I'm concerned about our financial situation. Well, I can get on a spending plan. I can go to Dave Ramsey's FPU. I can jump in. I can get some help. I can get some coaching. I can get a financial mentor in one of our groups, a successful man or woman who's done well. I can ask their advice and insight. I can either reduce my expenses or I can get a side hustle and try to increase my income, but at least there's some stuff I can do. And so to the degree that my concern overlaps my circle of control, I just need to engage and act on that concern. But a lot of us, if we're honest, where our worry comes in is when we get way out in the blue yonder, way out in that blue circle, way past our ability to control. Other people, for instance. Most of our fears, a lot of our fears and worries relate to other people. Will they love me? Will he ever ask me to marry him? Will she go out with me? Will he ever get sober? Will she ever stop acting in this destructive way? Will my kids ever get back on the right path? Will they ever make the decisions that I am planted in their hearts and in their lives? But here's the hard and yet liberating truth today. You can't change another person. That is outside of your sphere of control. I'm sorry. That's a hard truth to swallow, right? I went through years of drug addiction. I asked my dad once how he kept it together through all of that. He said, I finally had to come to a place where I surrendered you to God. Live or die. I give you to God. It's like, I love you. I'm here for you. But I can't carry it because I can't control it. So listen. Some of you right now are in that situation with a kid or a family member or a loved one. This is what I believe is the key to managing worry in our lives. Do what only you can do, and then trust God to do what only He can do. Right? Act on your concern, but when you come to the end of your ability to control, which is pretty fast, isn't it? When you get to the end of what you can do, man, the lesson then is to start walking with an open hand and trusting that God will do what only God can do, to give it to Him and trust Him. I remember when our daughter Emma was born, she cried a lot as a little baby. Any of you have a baby in your life that cried a lot, always woke us up in the middle of the night? We never slept. I mean, I have moments where I thought I'm never going to sleep again. Till we had our second child, and man, he didn't sleep at all. He was even worse. But I remember laying there with our first child in bed, and like if you're a young parent, I know we got some young parents around here today. Look, when you're a young parent, I mean, it's just amazing. The world just keeps going, but you haven't slept in like a month. And you're just like, oh my gosh, everybody's just expecting me to keep doing what I used to do. I can't sleep. I remember laying in bed and she's crying, waking us up all night long. And I remember staring at that ceiling fan and I started worrying. I started thinking about things like, what if she never sleeps again? Well, I mean, what if she marries some bum? What if I can't afford her college and she wants to go to college? How am I going to pay for her wedding? Look, man, she ain't even 6 months old yet. But I'm living way out in the future. And I'm just laying in my bed. I can't sleep. I'm worrying. And I know her pattern, man. She'd have these certain nights she wasn't going to sleep all night long. It just didn't matter what we did. But the whole situation changed when I get up in the middle of the night and I get her and I put her in a car seat and I put her in our car because the one way I could get her to go to sleep was to drive around. As soon as I backed out of the driveway, she'd get quiet. Then I'd start driving. I'm a block away. She's out. And that's awesome. As long as you didn't stop long, she was good. She'd be asleep. I'm just driving. Any of you did this? How many of you? Come on, you know what I'm talking about? Look at all those hands. Yeah, you know, you've been there. Like you're driving around in the middle of the night just hoping the cops don't pull you over. Like, hey, brother, just trying to get my little girl to go to sleep. I ain't doing nothing wrong. It's 3 a.m., but I'm just driving. I come up to a red light. Stop. 3 in the morning. You thinking, what do? Do I run this light? I'll do whatever I got to do to keep my little girl asleep. Don't you put it past me. This is life or death, people. And I can remember sitting at that red light 3 in the morning, which goes on forever, even though there's no cars anywhere to be seen. I remember I look back, my little daughter starts moving around. She's starting to get anxious. So I put it in reverse, put it in drive. Put it in reverse, right? Come on, put it in drive, whatever. Just keep that car moving, baby. We keep moving. Let me tell you what I wasn't doing in that moment. I wasn't worrying. I started to act on that concern and do the little bit that I could do. And it distracted me from worrying about all the things that I couldn't control anyway. That's a powerful way to replace worry in your life. Act on your control. Listen, worry never fixes tomorrow, but it always ruins today. Here's another thought, and that's to just grow your perspective. Grow your perspective. I love the story of Elisha and his assistant because Elisha gets up and he walks out and here's this whole army that's gathered around them. It feels like all the world's coming against them. And here's what Elisha says to his servant, 2 Kings 6, Verse 16, don't be afraid, Elisha told him, for there are more on our side than on theirs. This is where you know his assistant was like, what you smoking, bro? Like, what? Did you have something to drink this morning? What, like, we didn't even have breakfast. They got a whole army. What are you talking about? And then Elisha prayed, oh, Lord, open his eyes and let him see. And the Lord what? Opened the young man's eyes. And when he looked up, he saw that the hillside around Elisha was filled with horses and chariots of fire. So here's the scene. He looks up and there's the army. It's still there. Sometimes your problems just don't go away, right? The problem is still there. But when his eyes are open, the veil gets pulled back and he sees behind the problem, behind the army, stands the army of God. And it's like Elisha wants him to realize, hey, they've got chariots, but we got chariots of fire. They got a king, but we got the King of Kings, right? They got soldiers, but we got angels. Listen, bro, you don't have to be afraid. There's more on our side than on their side. And somebody needs to hear that today. Because right now it feels like everybody's coming against you and everything is coming against you. You're outnumbered and you're not sure where to look and what to do. Listen, if you're a follower of Jesus today, I want to encourage you with these words. The Bible says, if God is for you, who can be against you? Listen, it doesn't mean we won't face problems. It doesn't mean we won't go through difficult circumstances. But the God who created heaven and earth, the God who spoke order into chaos, the same God can speak into your heart today. He can grow your perspective today and help you realize that you're not alone in this situation in your life. If you'll trust him, if you'll open your heart to him. A lot of times I think worry comes down to perspective. And have you noticed that when you think about a problem, the problem gets bigger? When you focus on the problem, it gets larger and stronger and mightier until that problem is all you see. But one of the ways we can manage worry is to stop focusing so much on the problem in front of us and start focusing on the God who is beside us and in us. And then worry begins to lose its power. If you fly over the Bible at 50,000 feet, God introduces himself with many different names. And I think he's trying to remind us of his power and of his strength and of who he is. A name is an important thing, right? A name, especially in the biblical context, mattered a lot. It was significant. Here's what God says his name is. He's the mighty one, the Lord, the ruler, the supreme might, the Lord of the angel armies, the God who sees, the God who provides, the God who heals, the God who perfects. He's your peace, your rock, your stronghold, your rescuer, your redeemer, your creator. He's the God who is ever present, the God who is available, the wonderful counselor, mighty God, Father of eternity, Prince of peace, the Holy One, the tower of strength, the ruler, the King of glory, the Ancient of days, the Father of lights, the Father of mercy, the God of all comfort. Listen, he's the Savior of all. He's the good shepherd, the faithful witness, the bright morning star, the Lion of Judah, the Lamb of God. He's the author and perfecter of faith. He's the head over all things. He's the way, the truth, the life. He's the door, the servant, the advocate. He's the beginning and the end, the first and the last, the Alpha and the Omega, and he is the ruler of all the kings of the earth. It may be that it's not the size of your problem that is your problem. It may be the size of your God. That's your problem. And we need a bigger perspective of who God is. We need to remember who he is and what he can do in our lives and in our world. Maybe we just need to pray with Elisha's servant, the prayer that Elisha prayed over his servant. Lord, open my eye, open his eyes. Open my eyes, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. Help me see that. Because when you're up against an army, it's hard to see anything but the army, God. I just confess to you, help me realize you're present with me in this cancer. Help me realize you're present with me with my kid wrestling with addiction. Help me realize you're present with me when it feels hopeless in my marriage. Help me realize you're present with me when I'm not sure where rent's going to come from next month. God, be in the situation with me. Open my heart. Open my eyes. My heart is open to you. Help me see. God, I want to believe that there is more on our side than on their side. But I need you to grow my perspective to believe that. And then the third area that we can replace worry with is just to ask for help. Ask for help in your lives. I love this picture floated around on social media recently. This little girl going to her first day of school. Check her out. She's got a little tie on, little uniform, looks all together. Mama been working hard, putting all this together, right? First day of school, gonna be awesome. This is what she looked like at the end of the first day of school. How many of you feel that way when you come home from work? You know what I'm talking about? You're like, oh, brother, I just survived. That's all I did. I just walked in and made it, man. I don't know. That's life sometimes, right? That's what it feels like sometimes. It's hard. It's difficult. And a lot of times we love to throw like cliches at things like that. Like people will say things like, hey, God will never give you more than you can handle. And that's very comforting. I've found it very comforting at different seasons. I'm sure you have too. I'm not saying it's not a comforting statement, but it's not really a biblical statement. So hang with me here. Like, you know, the Bible does say in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13, God will never let you be tempted beyond what you can bear, right? I get that. That's one thing. But when you really read through the pages of the Bible, God's kind of in the business of putting people in situations where there is more than they can handle. How about Elisha standing in front of a whole army? God never give me more than I can handle. No. This is bad, bro. You're going to die. The little caveat I would add is this. God will never give you more than you can handle with him. With him. Philippians puts it this way. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, right? Like, it's not on my own. My life is filled with things I can't handle on my own. But God with me and in me, we can face this situation. And when you actually read Philippians 4, some of the fascinating context is, part of it is about financial hardship and difficulty and financial struggle. And in the midst of that struggle, Paul's like, I can do all things through Christ. It's not about just being the best boxer. You know, we see that on a boxer. You know, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. It's about, how do I get through today, I ask for help. And God can show up and help. Look at this, Psalm 34, verse 4. I love this. He says, I prayed to the Lord, and he answered me. Friends, I want you to know today, you can pray to God. He may not give you the answer you want, but he will hear you and he will answer you. Why do I say that? Because he's revealed himself as the God who hears and answers again and again and again in his word, right? He says, I prayed to the Lord and he answered me. Now look at this. He freed me from all my fears. I believe it is possible for us to live free from all of our fears. Maybe not every day on this side of heaven, maybe not 100% of the time, but we can have growing moments in our life where we are free from all our fears as we surrender to God and trust him. What an amazing statement. Can you even imagine, right? Be free from all your fears. Now look at this. Those who look to him for help will be radiant. Come on, ladies. How many of you want to be radiant right now? I know you do, because you put that stuff on your face, that lotion, and then my wife puts the mask stuff, scares me to death. I think it's Friday the 13th, I don't know what's going on when I walk in. She got the stuff on her face, right? Why? Because she want to look radiant, right? She's getting it pulled together, man. She's like doing what she can to look as good as she can. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. But listen, the Bible is talking about a different kind of radiance that is way cheaper than Sephora. You be radiant with joy. Look what it says, radiant with joy. There's a glow that all the skincare products in the world can't give you. It's the glow from the inside out that comes when God has taken all your fears. You still may be in front of an army. It still may look difficult. It still may be overwhelming, but you're like, God, I give you my fears. I trust you with my fears. And there is a radiance that comes from that. Here we go, verse 7. For the angel of the Lord is a guard, and he surrounds and what? Defends all who fear him. He's defending you. The angel of the Lord is a guard. So God is with you. You're not alone. When worry creeps up, when fear creeps up, take your worry and give it to him. Take your worry. Get in the habit of just bringing it to him. That health concern's right there. Take your worry. Give it to him. That family situation's right there. Take that worry. Give it to him. Get in the habit of replacing worry with prayer. God, I give it to you. I need your help. I trust you. We've had a lot of change in our house the last few weeks. We dropped my oldest daughter off in Southern California, about 5-hour drive away at college. First one of my kids to go off to college, right? Now, my daughter, that's my little girl. Come on, dads, you know what I'm talking about? Like, that's my little girl. And she's an artist, which means she's dead to alarm clocks. So she never woke up on her own her entire life. Like, all the alarm clocks in our house can be going off. They wake me up across the house. She's still asleep. Alarm clocks do not affect her. So her whole life, I wake her up. I'm not talking about a dozen times or 100 times. I'm talking about thousands of times her entire life. Every single night before she goes to bed, I say, hey, Emma, what time you need to get up in the morning? Of course, it's always the same. Oh, I don't know. I'm like, okay, let's figure it out. And we figure out the time, and then I go in and wake her up. And honestly, I probably should have stopped doing it a couple years ago, you know what I'm saying? Like, let her grow up a little bit, but I'm her dad, man. I always got her back. Like, I always make sure she gets where she needs to go. I look back on it now and realize, like, I kept waking her up every morning. That was more about me than her. I didn't want to let go. So I sat down with her a couple months ago. School was about to start. Like, she's already graduated high school. Daddy's still waking her up every morning. I might have a problem. I said, I can't wake you up anymore, which was harder for me to say than for her to hear. You're gonna have to get up on your own now. You gotta step into this new season of your life. You gotta figure out how to wake yourself up. Good luck. But I won't lie, the next morning I got up and I walked to her door, because it's what I've done for thousands of days. And I stood at her door. I actually put my hand on her doorknob. And I thought about my little girl. And I prayed for her. God, protect her. Protect her heart. Keep those boys that were like me away from her. God, work in her life. Bless her. And please, right now, Lord, wake her up. because I'm not going to open this door. And I turned and walked away. And it's just a moment for me of taking those fears and taking those worries and turning them back over to God. By the way, she went to school in Southern California. They call it the #1 surf school in America. And I never seen as many young boys walking around with their shirts off and surfboards under their arm. And they're like, Lord, I give my worry to you. I surrender her to you. Work in her life. It's okay to be concerned. You've got a lot of concerns in your life. That's okay. That's good. That's healthy. But worry is concern gone bad. So take that concern and act on it. Do what you can do. And when you come to the end of what you can do, surrender it to God and let Him do what only He can do. And then just pray, God, open my eyes, grow my perspective so that I can replace worry with faith and realize you're moving and working. And then just ask God for help. Just keep bringing your worries to Him and trust Him. Worry never fixes tomorrow, but it always ruins today. Let's bow and pray together. God, we thank you for your love.